Ride on the magic school bus.
So, good morning, class. Today, we are going to explore the brain, specifically the brain of a UP Manila student and how they perceive themselves. It is actually quite fascinating to see how their mind functions, especially after they take Class 1. I asked each aspect of the self and what they can input on the upcoming in-person classes. In total, there were 9 aspects, and the first one that will be shown is a multidisciplinary self input. Here, we will tackle how different fields view the idea of self.
Self is a multifaceted entity, which is why it's only right that we take time to break it down into its tiny bits to get a deeper understanding of how each fragment of the self operates. Fundamentally, viewing the self through the various disciplinary lenses helps us establish our ground, aka the very basic principles that comprise our beliefs, morals, and worldviews. Now with the shift from being physically isolated from college peers to meeting and spending time with them in the upcoming FLF setup, such drastic changes may cause our ground to be shaken due to clashing beliefs. Here is where the importance of establishing a strong sense of self and exercising critical judgment comes in, specifically in one's responsibility to establish who you are and who you will be in the context of life in the university, as one's existing views may change due to the transition between learning environments. Remember, as an individual who is one with society, cultural and social influences are inevitable and not all bad, but it is essential to know when such changes stop becoming developmental and start overstepping boundaries of what is right and what is healthy.
So now we will be moving on to the next aspect, which is the construct of self. Here, we will show how self-awareness plays a role in improving one's goal setting.
We also have the constructs of the self, which are great tools for boosting one's progress and keeping ourselves in check, starting with realizing the value of self-awareness. Being self-aware allows one to identify their strengths and weaknesses, hence helping the person know which skills or qualities to exploit or maximize while guiding them where they should focus their efforts for the purpose of improvement. Studying at a prestigious university where competition is tough, it's very easy to lose confidence in ourselves as we find ourselves surrounded by equally if not more than excellent individuals. The whole experience can be very daunting given the intimidating environment and the survival of the fittest culture in the university, which may prompt more fear to grow due to the possibility of failure and experiencing more setbacks than breakthroughs. Given the situation, self-assessment becomes more important to practice so that we can see where we are in our journey with respect to our target destination. But we must make it a habit to practice reaffirming, validating, and positive self-talk, as lifting our spirits up and cheering ourselves on is equally important as putting in the work to get to where we want to be. And as students persevering, doing our best, and surviving in this harsh setup, we are very much worthy of all the kindness and appreciation we can give ourselves.
In order to truly know ourselves, we must examine the nature of the self. This requires an in-depth scrutiny of the inner machinations of one's mind, such as one's thoughts, emotions, and behavior.
Face-to-face classes are approaching, and with this change of learning style, we must once again adjust ourselves. Although this mode of learning is what we were originally used to, with a 2-year gap due to online classes, we have developed various habits that may be either beneficial or detrimental to the upcoming change. One way to assess how we would do when the time comes is through self-reflection. Self-reflection allows us to view ourselves in an objective way to determine our strengths and weaknesses. We can use this to determine the good study habits we have, habits such as good time management that we may have picked up due to the asynchronous nature of certain classes, or improved creativity that we got due to the shift of all work online. On the other hand, we must also recognize bad habits that we have to lose. Getting easily distracted and procrastinating would make things harder for you. It is essential we view ourselves impartially to help mold us to be the best version of ourselves.
To have a deeper understanding of oneself, let us embark on a journey across various dimensions of the self. There are multiple dimensions that are interconnected, with no one more important than the other. To begin, let us explore the physical self.
Hey, now let's talk about your physical self. The physical self involves anything that has to do with your physical appearance. In other words, your body image. Let's take a look at what this guy thinks about his physical self. Oh, it seems they're thinking about how the lack of physical activity during the pandemic is affecting their physical appearance. It seems because of the lack of activity, they think that they have put on some weight. This could take a toll on their body image if they aren't careful. What they can do is remember their 3 W's: wellness, well-being, and wholeness. They should see if they are healthy, happy with themselves, and feel fulfilled with their body. Well, now that lockdown restrictions are easing up, they can go outside and exercise. Maybe go out for a jog every once in a while. They could also do some exercise at home if they wanted to.
The next two dimensions are often brought up together, which is why we will be visiting them both simultaneously. Here, we will discover which among the two dimensions take a bigger part in one's decision making.
Next up are the intellectual and the emotional selves. These deal with your mental capacity to absorb new information and your ability to deal with your emotions respectively. Now first, let's look at the intellectual self. It appears their main problem is adjusting from face-to-face classes to online and then back again. With the online setup, they saw what they were doing during face-to-face was not working anymore. So they came up with new tactics. They started doing more group studies over online calls and reading more of the material. If they apply critical thinking as they adjust back to face-to-face classes, then they should be fine. It also do well for them to remember that logical intelligence is not the only intelligence out there. People are intelligent in different things, whether it's kinetic, social, introspective, musical, or visually, they are intelligent in some way or the other. The emotional self is just as important as the intellectual self. It doesn't matter if someone knows a lot of things if they can't handle their own emotions after all. The main problem I see here when it comes to the emotional self lately is their emotional stress during the pandemic. Understandable really, since people were fearful of catching COVID and couldn't go out to see their friends. It seems they coped through online group calls. It helped them feel they're not alone and still have their support system no matter where they may be. It's good to stay optimistic because even though we have not fully defeated COVID, things are now better than they were before. I guess all I can say to maybe help others with their emotional self as we return to face is to keep talking with your support groups. New challenges will come with the return of face-to-face, but you can face these problems together.
So the next dimension is the material and economic self, which tackles your needs, wants, and how we allocate them.
With the possibility of face-to-face classes next semester, almost all of us would need to allocate our money and budget it so that we have enough for our needs. With this, we need to be more mindful with our spending since for the majority of us, money is limited. So here, my tip would be to have a spending tracker, whether it be a spreadsheet, a Notion page, a notebook, or just even a simple piece of paper. So here, you would input everything you buy, regardless of how small the purchase is, and by around 2 weeks, you would have an idea on what your spending patterns would look like. Analyze the data and see what you need to improve on. Here, do you spend most of your money on snacks, printouts, or even something else? Delineate your needs and wants and see if there are ways that you can save money so that you can treat yourself occasionally, or just even save it if that's what you desire.
Evaluating a person's culture may give context to a person's behavior, beliefs, and values. The next segment will discuss the relation of culture and society and how it affects the self.
Student culture has changed due to the ongoing pandemic, and with the possibility of in-person classes next semester, there would be most likely another shift. Culture is dynamic as it changes along with the people and the time. Our practices, values, and general outlook now may change once we transition into face-to-face classes because of the change in people we interact with. We are now not confined to our homes, so our experiences would be different. Furthermore, our mode of communication has also changed from digital to in-person. Lastly, our identity as a UP student would be further strengthened since we are experiencing the UP campus and culture firsthand.
And last but definitely not the least is the political self. This aspect tackles issues within our society and how we respond to it.
Some may think that one's political self is not as important as the other dimensions of the self, but what they don't realize is that one's political self can tell you a lot about a person's values. The things we want to promote and the things we fight for tell not only what we want for ourselves, but also what we want to normalize for the people in our community. This is why some people believe that being apolitical can be a bad thing, since it could mean that you don't care about the issues happening around you simply because it isn't happening to you. Once face-to-face classes begins, you will meet a lot of people with different political beliefs, and some of them may be able to sway you. You just have to remember to keep your values rooted and do your own research. Gain enough knowledge and critical thinking to decide whether or not you support their cause. Don't be pressured into doing something you don't like. If you don't feel comfortable in rallying and prefer joining social media campaigns, it's all right. Do what you think is best to support what you believe in.
Each aspect of the self has offered unique insights regarding the upcoming face-to-face classes. Knowing yourself is a long and difficult process, but I do hope you have at least learned something while watching this video. So that concludes the class. So thank you and goodbye.